We need to start reviewing for our 8.1 through 8.3 quiz. So we are going to start with 8.1 inverse variation. So remember that you have two types of variation. Direct variation is y equals k times x, where k is the constant of variation. And inverse is y equals k divided by x, which again still k is the constant of variation. And in this one, x cannot equal 0. So when we encounter an XY chart and it asks us if the relationship is direct or inverse or neither, what we first need to do is look and see what our values are doing. So in this one, it looks like my X values are increasing and my Y values are decreasing. So if I look over here, if I'm doing multiplication, so let's say this is the number 2. If I do 1 times 2, I get 2. If I do 2 times 2, I get 4. So as x got bigger from 1 to 2, y also got bigger from 2 to 4. So when you have direct variation, your values will be traveling in the same direction. So here x is increasing and y is decreasing. That tells me that probably it's going to be inverse, because if I'm dividing, one is going to get larger while the other one gets smaller. So I wonder if this is inverse. And when I wonder if this is inverse, I need to figure out what k is. So in order to get k by itself in this equation, I would multiply both sides by x, right? So then this side would say x times y equals k, and the x's over here would cancel. So if I think that this is inverse, then to check, I need to do x times y for all of these. And I've already done that, so it's 3/10, 3/10, 3/10, and 3/10. If they are all the same, then that means it is a variation. It's inverse because they are going in two separate directions, and this number that I just found out is my k. So now I can write my equation, y equals k divided by x, and 0.3 is my k. So in this next one, you do the same thing. My x's are increasing. This time though, my y's are also increasing. When they're traveling in the same direction, I think that might possibly be direct variation. Now in this equation, how would you get k by itself? You would have to divide both sides, correct? So, oh, sorry, I forgot to write that this might be direct. And why is it direct? Because they're traveling in the same direction. So to get this k by itself, I would divide both sides by x, correct? So I would have y divided by x. So when you're doing a check on direct variation, you do y divided by x. So 3 divided by 1 is 3, 6 divided by 2 is 3, 15 divided by 5 is 3, and 18 divided by 6 is 3. And so this, again, is k. Then I can write my equation, but I'm not going to use the inverse equation, I'm going to use direct, so y equals 3 times x. I don't remember, did the directions say if I needed to say if it was inverse? Yes, so the directions said is the relationship, so inverse, direct, so I know it's inverse now, and I know it's direct, so I can take away those question marks. So that's part of my answer. All right, now on this last one, my x's are increasing, my y's are also increasing. So I'm going to check again to see if it's direct. So in this case, again, I'll do y divided by x to check. So 1 divided by 0 is undefined. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. 7 divided by 4 is 1.75. And 8 divided by 6 is 1.3 repeating. So these are not all the same, so it can't be direct, it can't be inverse, so it is neither, and when it is neither, we don't have to write an equation. Alright, down here, suppose x and y vary inversely, so that means I'm going to be using this equation, k divided by x. Now, if it said directly, you would use the direct equation, and you do need to study that because it sure could be on your quiz. So make sure to review that. Write a function that models each inverse variation. Graph the function. and find y when x equals 10. I am not going to graph the function. Alright, so my equation is going to be y equals k divided by x. So I need to use these two, and I'm going to plug them in for y and for x. So negative 4 equals k divided by 2. And to solve that, I would multiply by 2 on each side. So negative 8 equals k. So my equation is y equals negative 8 divided by x. Then it says find y when x is 10. So y equals negative 8 divided by 10. Well, those can both divide by 2. So y equals negative 4/5. Sorry, I probably should have changed colors to do that. I'll do that next time. Okay, same thing inversely. So negative 1 equals k divided by negative 9. Multiply both sides by negative 9. 9 equals k. So my equation is y equals 9 divided by x. And then I need to find that. Find y when x is 10. Well, in that case, it doesn't simplify. So there we go. I'm going to change this one to direct just so we have one that we're doing direct variation. So in direct variation is y equals k times x. So 10 equals k times 1.5. So 10 divided by 1.5 gives me, oh, that's gross, 6 2/3 is k. So my equation is y equals 6 2/3 x. And then I need to find y when x is 10. So y equals 6 2/3 times 10. So when I multiply that by 10, I get 66 2/3. So you can see it's the same process for direct or inverse. It just depends on which type of equation you use, the direct or the inverse. Alright, so on number 7 says this table at the right shows the time t it takes to drive home when you travel at various speeds s. Write a function that models the relationship between speed and time it takes to drive home. So as we look at this, our fractions 1/6, 1/4, 1/3, and 3/4, those are actually increasing. So my time t is increasing and my speed is decreasing. So if they are traveling in different directions, then I suspect inverse variation. And so in order to check that, I need to do x times y. So if I check that, 60 times 1/6 is 10, 40 times 1/4 is 10, 30 times 1/3 is 10, and then 3/4 times 13.3 is 9.975, so close enough. So since they are all very close to 10, I'll use k equals 10, and since they're traveling in different directions, this tells me inverse. Oh, and I don't use y, sorry. This is s and this is t. So s equals 10 divided by t. So it says, at what speed would you need to drive to get home in 50 minutes or 5/6 hours? So which one of these two should I use? Should I use the minutes or the hours? Well, we go up into our chart and check. T is in hours, so we need to use the one that utilizes hours. So how fast do I need to go? 10 divided by 5/6. So 10 divided by 5/6 is giving me a speed of 12 miles per hour. Make sure you study for your quiz.